We all know that we cannot afford to have a Labor Green government running this country from Canberra. Anthony Albanese governing together with Adam Bandt and Nick McKim is an incredibly scary prospect for Tasmanians and Australians. And that's why our Liberal team here today is working so hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. That we protect our job-creating industries, that we invest in essential health services, that we take action on the cost of living, and that we make petrol 25 cents a litre cheaper. Now, friends, I want to welcome to the stage one of the hardest working candidates in the country. And we're probably all a little bit biased in this room, but I'm sure you'll agree with that assessment when I tell you who it is. On the Labor side, it seems like nobody wants to represent the great electorate of Lyons. Rebecca White took $50,000 of taxpayers' money to not do the job she was elected to do as a state member for Lyons. And this week we found out that Brian Mitchell took $115,000 of your money to not run for Lyons at this election. But thankfully, on our side, on the Liberal side, we have a candidate who is out there every day, door knocking, talking to voters, because she understands just how badly Lyons needs a strong representative in the nation's parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Liberals, please join me in welcoming to the stage the next member for Lyons, Susie Bauer.
As you know, my name is Susie Bauer. I'm the Liberal candidate for Lyons, and it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to my home electorate. I grew up here, not far from here actually, and have lived here most of my life. Lyons is the rural heartland of Tasmania, and the people who live here are generous and common sense people. It is a wonderful place to grow up, raise a family and start a business, and I hope you all enjoy your visit here today. I also have the honour of welcoming each of my fellow candidates who have joined us here. I know that each of them are sincere in their desire to serve and to represent their communities. Bridget Archer has been the Liberal member for Bass since 2019, a terrific representative for a community, and I am confident that the people of Bass will reward her by returning her for a third time. Marilena De Florio is our Liberal candidate for Clerk. She has a very diverse and fascinating background, working as an Air Force medic, as the aged care nurse, and most recently in senior administrative roles in the health service. Josh Garvin is our candidate for Franklin. He's a recent law graduate, but more importantly, he's just become a dad for the first time. And his lovely wife, Liz. Congratulations to you both. Mal Hingston is the Liberal candidate for Braddon. He's got some big shoes to fill with the departure of Gavin Pearce, but I'm sure that anyone who's met him will tell you he is absolutely up for it. His positivity and determination to serve is unmatched, and I have no doubt he will be a great representative for Brisbane. forestry, he's taking the fight right up to Labor on their reckless, job-destroying policies. The Chief Opposition Whip in the Senate, the patron senator for Lions, who is helping lead the charge to win back this crucial seat. Claire Chandler, who we've heard from earlier, she's served as a senator since 2019 and as a formidable part of Peter Dutton's team. Bridget Colbeck is one of the most experienced parliamentarians in our state and has served in senior roles in government. Who is our Liberal Senate candidate, who has served in local banking, senior policy roles, and in local government. Welcome to you all. I present to you the Tasmanian Federal Liberal Party team, the team who will help get Australia back on track.
That's right, Susie, and what a fantastic Liberal team we have. Unlike our opponents, we have a lineup of Tasmanians who have the skills and the experience and the passion to deliver for our state in Canberra. In this team, we have people who know what it's like to run a business, develop economic opportunities and work with Tasmanian communities to grow their potential. Now, I'd like to bring forward one of our fantastic candidates to say a little more for you. Please give another big round of applause for Mal Hingston, the next member for Bradden.
I'm Mal Hingston, your Liberal candidate for Bradden. But before I launch into this, I'd like to acknowledge Gavin Pearce, the retiring member. Mate, for 7 months I've been getting out and around in Bradden talking to people. Not one person's had a bad thing to say about you. You're incredibly popular. Your brand's strong. What you've done for the Liberal Party brand is awesome. I'm incredibly lucky to be in a position to follow on what you've done, so thank you very much. Let's give it another. Now I'm sure, just like the areas my friends behind me here on stage come from, the Northwest is a fantastic place to live, with an unmatched lifestyle and great opportunities for jobs and to raise families. But right now, under this bad Labor government, the residents of Bradden are doing it tough. We're spiralling costs of living and local industries that are under threat. I want to represent Bradden so we can have a common sense Liberal government that listens to the community, brings down the cost of living and supports our industries. Now today I'm here to introduce someone who knows Bradden very well. Someone that also knows the damage that a Labor Green government can do to our region. He's been incredibly kind and supportive of me, and I can tell you he's very well liked in our community. He was first elected to represent Bradden in Tasmania, House of Assembly in 2002. Ladies and gentlemen, this Tuesday marks his 3rd year as Premier of Tasmania. It is my pleasure to welcome the Honourable Jeremy Rockcliffe.
thank you very much, Mal. What a fantastic candidate and what a fantastic member for Brad Mal Hingston will be. Well done, Mal. And it's fantastic to be here with you all today. Thank you all for joining us, but I particularly thank very much all our hard-working candidates and all their teams working so very hard to secure a Liberal victory on May the 3rd this year. And I know that you all know the next few weeks are incredibly important for the state of Tasmania and Australia. This election really is a sliding doors moment. An election that will determine whether this nation continues to be held back by a Labor government or whether we elect a Liberal government to get this country back on track. Now we know that life wasn't meant to be easy, but it's certainly been a lot harder under Albanese and the Labor government. The Labor government that has presided over the worst cost of living crisis in a generation. A Labor government that watched on as we had a dozen interest rate rises. A Labor government that promised to cut your power bills by $275. And a Labor government that has failed to fix the housing crisis. Yes, life is much harder under this Labor government. And that's why we must get Australia back on track. And we cannot afford to risk, and we cannot afford another Labor Green government. Tasmanians still remember very clearly, more than anyone right here in Tasmania, the damage done when Labor and the Greens combined. We all remember, all far too vividly, the shutting down of a forest industry, the recession, the tens of thousands of jobs lost, and cuts to health so savage that hospital wards were closed and hospital beds were put in storage. It was a horror show, and we cannot afford the sequel. A Labor Green government cannot be trusted with your job in the forest industry, your job in the salmon industry, your job in the mining industry. The truth is, a Labor Green government is bad news for anyone that wears a high vis, and bad news for their families. Electing a Labor Green government will be devastating for this country as it was devastating for this state of Tasmania between 2010 and 2014, and we'll never forget it. And that's why we need to work so very hard to support our candidates, the wonderful team here assembled today, and support Peter Dutton and secure a Liberal victory. Now, I've known Peter Dutton for over 2 decades. I first met him in my electorate of Bridget on the northwest coast, and I've got to say I was impressed, very impressed. He understands the real world, the importance of fighting for families, communities and jobs. And when the salmon workers faced their uncertainty on the west coast, he was the first leader to visit, to listen, and the first leader to stand up for those people, those jobs in that community. Peter's a leader we need in these uncertain, and they are unsettling times. And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce a person that will welcome Peter Dutton, a person that's well known to you all, a person that also stands for her convictions, for what she believes in, stands up for what's right, works hard, and most certainly stands up for the people of Bass and indeed her community. A fighter for her electorate, a fighter for the people of Bass and a fighter for Tasmania. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a fantastic member for Bass, Bridget Archer.
Well, thank you, Premier. Friends, thanks for joining us here today. And those words from the Premier ring very true to me today, because they are the very reason, in fact, that I joined the Liberal Party some 10 years or so ago. And it was because of the devastation that was wrought across Tasmania and in my communities in northern Tasmania and northeast Tasmania the last time we saw a Labor Greens government here in Tasmania. Absolute devastation to communities, some of those communities that have yet to recover fully from the last time that we saw that experiment. And I joined the party then because I saw the turnaround that had happened under the leadership of then Will Hodgman and his deputy Jeremy Rockcliffe at the time. And we have seen that turnaround continue here in Tasmania to then see us leading some of those economic indicators in the years subsequent to that. We cannot be allowed to go back to those days. And it was the reason why I signed on to do this in the first place. And that day has come because we have seen that movie before. We know what it means. This is not an accident. This is not a coincidence. This is not something that we see might happen in the future. We know exactly what will happen if we get a Labor Greens government federally. And we cannot be allowed to see that happen. We need to support our industries. We need to fight cost of living. And we need to remind Labor that they have walked away from their own values as well. They came to this last election saying that no one would be held back, that no one would be left behind. And Tasmanians have been held back, and they have been left behind. And we have a team that has what it takes to get Australia back on track. Led by Peter Dutton, we will put in place policies that will get our country back on track. Common sense approach to bring down the cost of living, to fight against inflation, to support our industries and all of the jobs that they create here in Tasmania. We now have a short video that will tell you some of our plan for getting Australia back on track.
I lead a united and incredibly capable team. We're ready to govern, we're ready to deliver. A stronger economy with lower inflation, cheaper energy, affordable homes, quality healthcare and safer communities. And we will govern with respect for the views, values and vision of everyday Australians. Australians are worse off under the Albanese government. You can make the right choice. A better choice for you, a better choice for your family, and a better choice for your country. Together, let's build a stronger, safer and better Australia, and let's together get our country back on track.
Ladies and gentlemen, now please welcome the next Prime Minister of Australia, Peter Dutton, and his wife, Caroline.
Well, friends, how great is it to be back in Tassie? Thank you so much for being here today. I want to start by saying thank you to our amazing hosts today, to Andrew and Steph. Thank you, your beautiful family, and you're very gracious in having us here today. You are a hard-working Tasmanian family. You want more of what you earn, and I want to make sure that we have a government that can support you and your family and millions of others in your position as well. So thank you very much for having us today. Thank you. Premier, thank you very much to you and your team. When you look at what has happened in Tasmania in recent history, there have always been difficulties to deal with in the economy, across the environment, relationships in Canberra, etc., etc. And as the Premier pointed out before, the dark days of Tasmania have always been when the Greens and Labor have been in alliance. It's been demonstrated in Tasmania, and if it happens after the federal election, if you think it's been a bad 3 years so far, Australians haven't seen anything yet, because prices will continue to go up, we'll have dysfunction out of Canberra, and that is not something that our country can afford. So Premier, thank you so much for your words, and thank you very much for your leadership here in Tassie. I want to say thank you to all of our federal MPs, our candidates and senators, starting of course with the amazing Bridget Archer, the member for Bass, Mal Hingston, our candidate for Braddon, Gavin Pearce. Mate, I want to say to you, thank you very much. You have been a stalwart for our party. You have worn your heart on your sleeve. You have worked hard for your local community, and you have a love of country, a love of family, and you have a love of this great party as well. Thank you so much for what you've done. You heard also before from the amazing Susie Bauer, our candidate for Lions. She's doing a great job. Thank you to Josh Garvin, our candidate for Franklin, who does so much for our great party. Carolina De Florio, as well, our candidate for Clark. Thank you very much. Now, you've got some heavy hitters down here, as you know. You've got John O'Donian, Shadow Minister for Environment, Fisheries and Forestry, who has done an amazing job in that portfolio and stood up for the interests of Tasmania, as has Claire Chandler, the Shadow Minister for Government Services, the Digital Economy, Science and the Arts. My good friend, my very dear friend, Richard Colbeck, who came into the Parliament about roughly the same time as I did. He's aged much better than I have. He's still got his hair, he's still okay. I want to say thank you very much to Jackie Martin as well, who is our amazing candidate for the third Liberal spot. Wendy Askew, who is also a dear friend and has done an amazing job, has the respect of her colleagues and does a fantastic job in Canberra, but here in Tasmania as well. Would you please give them a big round of applause? Now, friends, I want to talk today about our plan for Tasmania, but also our plan to get our country back on track. Like you, all of us believe strongly in our country, in our values, and we believe in hard work, we believe in family, we believe in supporting people who want to have a go. We believe in that entrepreneurial spirit, and that's always been at the heart of our great party. And it is, I think, what we share in common with millions of Australians as we go to this next election. It is a fact that when we look at what's happening internationally at the moment, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the South China Sea, whether it's economically with tariffs and the impact that that's having on exporters, including here in Tasmania or right across the country. This is a period of uncertainty when we see wild fluctuations in the share market. Australians who have worked hard all of their lives to put money into their own superannuation funds, whether they're part pensioners, whether they're people who are fully funded, self-funded retirees, or maybe somewhere in between. Maybe it's a couple who have worked really hard to build up their own business or to put money aside to buy a rental property, to buy some shares and to provide for their retirement in a few years' time. All of those people are watching at the moment with great anxiety. about what's happening in the world economy, about what's happening here in the Australian economy. And at this election, Australians have a choice to make. And as we've seen in the past, the choice needs to be based on what we know about the Labor Party. The Labor Party, in the run-up to the 1996 election when John Howard and Peter Costello were elected, they spent like crazy, they ramped up taxes, and Australians were worse off. Our economy, our country was worse off. And it took a Liberal government to get our country back on track, to restore integrity into the budget. I was proud to be an Assistant Treasurer to Peter Costello and to be a Minister in the Howard years. But it wasn't easy, particularly in those early years. Labor had done a lot of damage. And when Labor does damage, it's hard to undo, but it also makes us less prepared for whatever economic headwinds might be just around the corner. And what I know is that when Tony Abbott came to power, after the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd years, what had happened? You wouldn't believe it, but debt had been run up again. You wouldn't believe it, but they had trashed the economy again and made life less certain for Australians. And our job then was to pay Labor's debt down, to get the budget back into balance, to make sure that we had the money in the bank, and to make sure that we had an economy that was resilient, to deal with what then faced us, which was COVID. Whatever happens after the next election, the government will have to deal with the next COVID, the next avian bird flu, the next conflict, the next economic disruption, and that government will have to be prepared to make decisions that are in our country's best interests. And my friends, I ask you today, do you think Anthony Albanese is up to that task? Do you think that Adam Bandt is up to that task? Do you think that the two minds of Anthony Albanese and Adam Bandt coming together are up to that task? They would do to the Australian economy what the Labor Party is doing to the economy in Victoria this very day. Ramping up taxes, ramping up debt, making it harder to invest, making it harder to employ, making it harder to provide for your family. When we win the next election, and I believe that we can, we will make sure that we have our team of Angus Taylor, who is, I think, doing a first-class job as the Shadow Treasurer at the moment. Joan Hume is the Shadow Finance Minister, and our senior team, many of whom you see behind me today, we will be on task from day one to make sure that we can deal with whatever happens in the environment, in the economy, whatever happens on our watch, we will be able to deal with it because we have in our DNA the ability not just to clean up Labor's mess, but to protect our economy from whatever is just around the corner. Over the course of the last 3 years, we know Australians have been through a lot. We know that Australians have been through the longest household recession and the worst collapse in living standards in our country's history. And think about that for a moment. There is a family behind every one of those stories. 29,000 small businesses have closed on Labor's watch. People have lost their life savings. People have lost their home or whatever they used as security for that business. And with $1 trillion of Labor debt now run up, that equates to about $125,000 per household. And if there is to be a significant downturn in the economy, if people are to see their superannuation balances diminish over the course of the next couple of years, they need a strong coalition government to deal with Labor's debt and to provide sureties and to provide certainty for people as they approach retirement. Our plan is a positive plan for our country. It's about delivering cheaper petrol. Is anyone in favour of 25 cents a litre of petrol every time you fill up your tank at this? Every time you fill up your tank. Labor's plan, of course, is to provide 70 cents per day by way of tax relief in 15 months' time. That, I think, shows how out of touch this Prime Minister is and doesn't fully comprehend the damage that he and his colleagues have done, the pain that is being felt by families right now. Prime Minister, get out of Canberra, listen to people, understand what they're going through, and understand that they need help now, not in 15 months' time. I want to say how proud I am of our Tasmanian team, of all of you in this audience, of the Premier, of our shadow cabinet and the way in which we have stood together with every person here in Tasmania to stand up for a world-class salmon industry. The salmon industry in this country is best practice. I don't want to see a situation where a Labor Greens government in Canberra, with Tanya Plibersek as the Environment Minister, moves after the election. Of course, they won't do it before the election, but if they move after the election to make it near impossible for the salmon industry to conduct its business here in Tasmania, we will lose jobs in Tassie. We will lose the industry, and there are no replacement industries, particularly in the northwest. There are no options for those families but to leave those communities, to take their kids out of the schools. And we've sat down and spoken with workers, along with Gavin Pearce, along with the Premier and others. Mal's had these conversations, and you know the story all too well. Labor was on a pathway to destroy the Tasmanian salmon industry. Exactly what they want to do to forestry in this great state as well. And I'm proud that we stood up with you, that we stood with salmon farmers here in Tasmania, and that we stopped Labor's plan to stop salmon farming here in Tasmania. Now, my friends, you also know a lot about the forestry industry here. It's a $1.2 billion sustainable industry. Tanya Plibersek, equally, along with Bob Brown and others, would close it down overnight. I'll tell you who else knows something about the way in which the Greens work and the way in which radical environmental policy works. That's Rebecca White. Rebecca White knows a lot about how it is to govern with Greens. She knows a lot about how it is to make bad decisions and to impose job